Hey everyone, are you ready for some cement? Yes, we're back again talking about more weird wrestling episodes. We're heading back to WWE for this one, for an event that, when I was a very small boy, traumatized me deeply. Did it traumatize you as well? Let me know in the comments down below. Yes, if you've seen this one before, it's the one which ends with Paul Bearer, and the stipulation is that he's trapped inside a cement crypt. But we'll get to that in good time. This is the greatest American Bash, why not? This is the Great American Bash 2004. Luke, oh, hit that intro, buddy. Bit of background of this show, this came during the first brand split when there was some exclusive pay-per-views. This is a Raw pay-per-view, this is a SmackDown pay-per-view. The Great American Bash 2004 is very much a SmackDown pay-per-view, which means that it's a little bit thin on the ground. Some of these matches you might notice might not be quite up to your personal standards of what constitutes a pay-per-view bout. But in some of the bigger matches, I will delve back into the build-up and maybe mention some things that happened on prior SmackDowns. Always SmackDown, remember, this is the blue brand, the home of good wrestling. Well, that might be debatable once we've watched it. So yes, just bear in mind, there's not quite as deep a roster of stars for WWE to draw upon at this time. It's spread a little bit thin, but it's not that noticeable, kind of. It's a little bit noticeable, it might be noticeable. It's June 27th, 2004. We are in Norfolk, Virginia, which I can only assume is named after the noble UK county of Norfolk. I've got to say that cleverly because otherwise it sounds like I'm swearing if I do it in my English accent. Shout out to Kip Sabian and the proud noble city of Norwich.
Or, quite simply, the Wales of the East.
Yes, indeed, the Great American Bash 2004. What better way to open the show than with Torrie Wilson dressed as actual America? She welcomes us all to the show. There's some fireworks and there's some rock and roll music, because America, baby. I can't remember the tune off the top of my head, but it's something along the lines of like, yeah, 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 we're America. But it's not like full-on hard rock. It's like, yeah, we're America, but it's no big deal. Actually, it's the biggest deal. Time for the first proper entrance of the show, and word life. This is basic basic thugonomics. Word life, man. Oh man, sometimes it's hard being this cool. Yes, of course, it's US champion John Cena defending in a four-way elimination match. Let's delve into that right now. The background to this one is that a young up-and-coming Jonathan Cena is the US champion but has run afoul recently of the SmackDown GM at the time, Kurt Angle, who because of an injury is confined to a wheelchair. At one stage, Booker T pushed Cena onto Kurt Angle, which Angle claimed injured him even more, but instead of blaming Booker T, he blamed John Cena because of course he did. Cena occupies a weird dynamic on this show, let's just say that now, because he's, I think, a babyface. He's meant to be a babyface, but man, he is so unlikable. In fact, I'm going to compare it to like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Kurt Angle detests Cena, but he's like in the Uncle Phil role because Cena's just partying, having fun, he's super popular, like Will Smith in the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But it's almost like as you get older, you sort of side with Kurt Angle instead. You're like, actually, no, he is kind of annoying. And I know that back in the Fresh Prince, it was like Uncle Phil was showing Will tough love and he was teaching him about the harsh realities of life, and it all reflected well on him in the end. You know, Uncle Phil, what a guy. Kurt Angle, less so. Probably more of a traditional heel GM. Cena, not a traditional babyface though. I can't wait to get to some of the stuff he does. On multiple levels, he is detestable in this show. Everyone cheers him though, it's worth noting. He is super over with the crowd, because this is obviously before Mega Cena, who won everything ever. So the crowd still like him a lot for some reason. Maybe just the year 2004 itself was heel and all within it. Before we get to Cena's opponents though, yo, listen, the Acclaim. I wish it was Max Caster. It's actually Cena with one of his raps. He says, yo, we up in the 7 cities. And I'm like, that is a lot of cities. 7? That's probably like half the total amount of cities in the UK. America's just way too big. I mean, what? But first of all, shout out once again to the noble city of Norwich. Let's just take a look at some of the lovely medieval buildings within Norwich. Look at Dragon Hall, for example. Look at the Cow Tower. I've never been to Norwich, but the Cow Tower sounds weird. Cows in towers doesn't seem to mix. I don't know, let's get back to the wrestling straight away. Cena does one of his rippety raps about all three of his opponents, Rob Van Dam, Renee Dupree, and Booker T. And he targets Kurt Angle as well, because Angle's trying to get him to lose his US title as the GM of SmackDown. The rap's a bit homophobic, I'm not gonna lie. It hasn't aged too well. Obviously, I can't repeat a lot of what Cena says for that reason. However, on the plus side, while dissing Booker T, he does refer to him as G.I. Bro, his old WCW gimmick for a time, while in the Misfits in action. Someone's been watching this series, John Cena. But this happened in 2004, so that's not possible. Renee Dupree enters. He's got Fifi the dog with him during his entrance. And hang on a second. Fifi's not a black dog. Fifi's a white dog. What's going on? This match starts off strong for Renee Dupree, by the way, who just dominates Cena seconds in and tosses him out of the ring. And I'm like, hang on, was Renee Dupree, did he have the rocket strapped to him at this stage? The strategy of this match sees all four guys at some point happy to try and take a breather on the outside and then throw someone else in to fight instead. Mainly Booker T, who's like being all clever, smart heel. And also I think the story is that he really doesn't want to fight Cena. But Booker then decides to remind us, hang on, I'm not just a cowardly heel, I'm actually a very, very good pro wrestler. Getting in there and destroying Dupree with a lovely spine buster. Rob Van Dam goes up top for the 5-star frog splash. The referee clearly has not seen any wrestling since about the 1970s because he absolutely freaks out at this. He's like, what are you doing all the way up there? And he almost gets in RVD's way. 5-star frog splash to Renee Dupree. 5-star frog splash to Booker T. Cena rolls up RVD and eliminates him. That's the first booking misstep of this show, in my opinion. It's not the most egregious, we'll get to that much later on, but it is still an odd one given how popular RVD was at this time. And having Cena eliminate him rather than one of the heels as well, it's a bit odd. I get that you want to have Cena overcome the odds against two heels and all that sort of stuff, but if you have to eliminate RVD first, get one of the bad guys to do it. But then again, maybe I'm saying this because I'm from the future, as we all are at this time, and I'm more sympathetic towards RVD because I know that his eventual world title run would fizzle out very quickly, whereas Cena would go on to become like the ultimate winner of everything in WWE history. I could also just be wrong because when Cena rolls up RVD, the crowd pops huge. It's a higher pitched pop than usual. A lot of women and children probably prefer Cena, but they don't respect Rob Van Dam, damn it, especially those kids. They've never seen ECW. They don't understand the importance of that promotion. They don't respect legends like New Jack. Parents, be responsible. Show your kids some New Jack matches. The match follows a bit more of a predictable pattern from here with the heels teaming up on Cena, but then eventually they argue and Cena gets a window back into the match. FU to Renee Dupree, but then Booker axe kicks Cena and then pins Dupree, leaving it against Cena and Booker one-on-one. It's exciting. Booker wears down Cena, but here comes the big comeback. Cena fires up. 5 moves of doom, but this is fairly early in his run, so it's more like the 5 moves of, it's okay so far. But Booker manages to avoid the FU. He sets up for the scissor kick. He gets a bit cocky and wastes a bit of time. FU, 1, 2, 3, Cena wins. You know the story. I learned 2 things from this opening match, which wasn't a bad match by any stretch of the imagination, especially considering what happens later on in the show. But the thing that I learned first was that Cena is like way more over than we'd maybe even like to admit retrospectively at this point. He is very, very popular indeed. He's clearly the guy for this company going forwards, alongside Batista over on Raw. And the second thing I learned is that just watching this, trying to watch it in a vacuum, not let any of my pre-existing prejudices about any of these wrestlers get in the way, it just feels like Booker T is leagues ahead of everybody else in this match as a pro wrestler. He's really good. This feud would rumble on for a little while with Angle stripping Cena of the title, only for him to then win it back after that best of 5 series against Booker T. Then Cena had that weird feud with Carlito where I think his mate attacked Cena in a nightclub. And then eventually Cena would progress on to the main event scene where he would beat JBL for the world title at WrestleMania, and then he would become Peacemaker. Do you really want to taste it? I'm not, a big expert on superhero products on TV, but that opening theme of Peacemaker, oh yes, what a banger-ranger. After the match, this is where Cena turns into a dick. After the match backstage, Charlie Haas tries to go, yo, Cena, congratulations, man, that was really good stuff. Cena blatantly ignores him to hit on Jackie Gator. It's a bit harsh. Also, Cena kind of, we think of Cena as like, yeah, he's really smooth, he's charismatic, he's a confident guy. Kind of stumbles over his words a little bit here when trying to flirt with the pretty lady. He says, yo, Jackie, I've got the belt. Also, I've got it good below the belt. Hit me up on the two-way. I don't know what the two-way is. Is that a mobile telephone, perhaps? Are we supposed to want to cheer for this guy? I guess we sort of are, but the crowd love it. They cheer about Cena going, below the belt, there's my ding-a-ling. Imagine if he said that. That's awesome. I should have written this show. Cena leaves. Charlie Haas is obviously like, Jackie, what the hell? Why are you flirting with John Cena? His night goes from bad to worse because Kurt Angle rolls up and goes, Charlie Haas, you used to be class when you were my protege, and now you're rubbish. Angle says, I can't believe how far you've fallen. Now you're hanging out with John Cena, which is an excellent misunderstanding by Kurt, I have to admit. So by way of punishment, Angle puts Charlie in a match against his newer, bigger protege, Luther Reigns, and he says, Charlie, you've got no choice. That match is right now. And Charlie's like, what? I don't know why Charlie's surprised, because he is in his gear. He's all oiled up and ready to go, so... Little peek behind the curtain there. Not one that I wanted to see. My immersion's been ruined. Now we go to another backstage segment where Sable is doing interviews from a hot tub and says, now I'm going to interview the biggest star of all. Myself, Sable, it's me. Basically, she just says, I've got a match against Torrie Wilson later on and I'm going to win. Not much of an interview, really. Tom Campbell would scoff at Sable's interviewing technique. To herself. It's time for Charlie Haas versus Luther Reigns. Not a lot to report here, really. Luther Reigns beats up Charlie Haas a lot, takes about one bump himself, and finishes him off with his nifty new finishing move, the Reigns of Terror. Luther Reigns, Reigns of Terror, ooh-ah, different Reigns. Just reading my notes here, it's actually the Reign of Terror. Reigns of Terror would have worked as well, equally, I think. Now, you might be wondering how I knew off the top of my head that this was Luther Reigns' first use of this finisher. How did I know this was exactly when he started using the Reigns of Terror? I didn't know that. It's because when he sets up for it, Michael Cole on commentary goes, oh, we've seen this before. Oh, no, we haven't. So just to briefly recap Charlie Haas's night, his girlfriend got hit on by John Cena, he got chewed out by his former mentor for wasting his potential, and he lost an extended squash match basically to Luther Reigns. I've certainly had better days. Next up, Cruiserweight title time, Booyaka Booyaka, Rey versus Chavo Guerrero. Chavo won a battle royal on SmackDown for this shot. Fair enough, I'm excited for some flips. We see a sign in the crowd as Rey appears. It says, wine me, dine me, 619 me. Goodness me. I thought that sign was really rude, and I was shocked when I saw it, given that Rey is not really a sexualized character. He's a little man in masks who does flips and stuff. He's very kid-friendly. But apparently, I was told by one of our writers here at Cultaholic, Lewis, that this used to be a t-shirt that Rey wore, the Why Me, Die Me, 619 Me. I'm shocked at this dirty side of Rey Mysterio. If we look closer at the people with this sign, you can see that the woman holding it is Mindy, and the person next to her is Justin. Justin and Mindy. Justin doesn't look too happy at Mindy's sign. He could possibly meet up with Charlie Haas at some stage tonight, and they can share their similar problems together. Rey almost rolls Chavo up early on and then tells him, oh, you've got a small willy. Well, no, he might be doing the I almost got you thing. It's 50-50, one or the other. Now that we know Rey's a dirty individual, it could well be the first. Chavo works Rey's leg, Rey is working Chavo's arm. Now, I'll be honest, right? I read a review of this match before watching it, and the review was positive, and I thought, ugh, that makes me feel physically sick. Because the review said, you might be ready for these guys to do some flips, but instead, they really do a solid technical wrestling match with limb work and stuff. And I was like, that's not what I want from my Cruiserweight division. But I have to be honest, it's pretty good. And that makes me realize something about myself. Maybe I actually like wrestling. And I feel weird admitting that. Another reason this match is good is that Rey clearly wants to help his mate Chavo look good. He's bumping and selling really well for him. And oh, what's this? Another sign in the crowd. Michael Cole fears puberty. These jokes aren't funny, right? Some of us just have younger features and it takes a while to develop like an adult bone structure, right? And Michael Cole, maybe he's done that these days. Who knows? I'm still waiting. Rey survives the gory bomb and a single leg Boston Crab, narrowly making the ropes. There's a huge pop for that. He also reverses a second gory bomb into a roll-up for the win. Rey Mysterio, still Cruiserweight champion, Booyaka Booyaka, 619. Rey would go on to lose the Cruiserweight title very shortly after this match, actually, to a newly heel-turned Spike Dudley. Ooh, quite surprising there. But as for the rest of it, this was just a good match. I enjoyed it, man. Good one. Not really the funniest example of a match for this video, so hopefully something weird happens next. It does. We're in luck. Next we get Torrie Wilson in a separate hot tub from Sable's heel hot tub. This is the babyface hot tub with Spike Dudley, who hasn't turned heel yet, he's still a face, Funaki, and Billy Kidman. Now, if you've been watching this series, you might have noticed that Torrie's been betraying Billy Kidman on 2 previous videos in this series, so I can't wait for her to hit him with like a sick concerto later on. Watch yourself, Billy. She's gonna make it 3 in a row. The Cruiserweights all argue amongst themselves in the hot tub, like, I would beat Rey, no, I'll beat Rey next, no, I'll beat Rey. And then their bickering is stopped when Torrie goes, I've got to go and get ready for my match against Sable, guys, and she gets up and leaves the hot tub. And they've clearly all been instructed to, like, ogle her as she, like, they're all like, oh my god, she's so hot. The acting's only marginally better than what I just did there. I'll break down what each of the 3 guys' reactions are. Billy Kidman, who I think at this stage was really actually with Torrie Wilson, so he probably feels weird about this, but he goes for like over-the-top American Pie teenager, like, oh my god, dude, radical ass. Spike Dudley just looks confused, or possibly is he contemplating his future heel turn on Rey Mysterio? And as for Funaki, he just stares a bit and then goes, God bless America. Oh. Okay. They say that foreign heel tropes are overused in wrestling. Not me. I think there's not enough of them, and that's why I really appreciate Kenzo Suzuki's entrance next. He's carried in on like a litter by minions. There's like a traditional done-up, Japanese girl manager. He's just constantly pulling shifty facial expressions as he's being carted down to the ring, like, oh, I'm gonna do some evil right now, this is gonna be sick. And he's taking on all of America itself, Billy Gunn. He's a nerf man, woo, America. America and Billy Gunn just fits, man. It just fits seamlessly together. Kenzo, during Billy Gunn's entrance, really reminds me of, if you've seen Rocky IV, at the start, when Ivan Drago's about to fight Apollo, and Kenzo and Ivan Drago, both foreign heels, confused by the freedom and liberty on display, because Billy Gunn comes down, Kenzo's like, what is this? Ivan Drago obviously is like, what is this, when Apollo comes out to living in America. So I really enjoy what they're doing here. Kenzo then shakes off this confusion to hit his first move, of all things, a Hadouken. Oh, yes, indeed. Hadouken! Kenzo's also wrestling a weird style here that he's clearly been told to like ramp up, because you're an evil foreigner, so you better do weird hand movements. And it's as if he's playing as martial law on Tekken, but he doesn't know any of the buttons yet, and he can't work out how to do the cool backflips, so he's just kind of going for no reason. There's a real mix of fighting styles going on here. Kenzo's using strange evil foreign techniques like nerve holds and shining wizards, and whoa, I've never seen this before. Whereas Billy Gunn's using his American muscles to just slam him all over the place in the name of freedom and eagles or whatever. Kenzo, by contrast, using sneaky heelish just quick back fist to the cock behind the referee's back. That'll do the job. He also does like a reversed neck breaker kind of thing of sorts. And have you ever seen a finishing move hit that makes the crowd get quieter? Because I didn't think I had until I watched this match. But he hits the move and the crowd go, oh. And then just falls silent. Not in like a, that looked really dangerous way. More in like a, oh, is that the finish? It is the finish. Kenzo wins and America has lost. Oh my God. Backstage we go now to what we've all really come here for. Paul Heyman and a kidnapped Paul Bearer. I'll break down the meaning of this feud before the main event itself, but for now Heyman says everyone thinks he's bluffing, which is bad for Bearer. If Undertaker doesn't do the right thing, which is a crucial phrase in this whole pay-per-view, then Heyman's gonna pull this lever and literally end Paul Bearer because he's trapped in a cement glass crypt. The crypt's made of glass. It's attached to a cement mixer. That'll pour in and that'll end Paul Bearer. And Heyman's gonna do it if Taker doesn't do the right thing. What does he mean by that? It's not entirely clear. I think the implication is that the right thing would be throwing the match and Taker losing on purpose in the main event to Heyman's pals, which makes sense. But then to make things more confusing, Heyman then says, even if Taker does do the right thing, who's to say I will? And I'm like, well, I feel like I'm missing something here, but I'm not. I watched the build up to this for this video and it's never really made concrete. Absolutely fantastic, Jack. Well done. Wrestling's weird, isn't it? Like, how is this literally allowed? We go back to commentary, and instead of going, well, we need to get police to the back right now to get Paul Bearer out of this contraption, they instead go like, chilling words there from Heyman. I'm like, no, like literally get someone. How was this sanctioned? To make things even worse, commentary are like, yeah, it's a very serious and harrowing situation unfolding backstage. Right, lads, time for Sable versus Torrie. Here we go. And I'm like, oh, tonal shifts galore. Torrie and Sable get ready for this match, and Cole's like, how great is this? Because back in the day, we had guys like Dean Malenko and Arn Anderson, but now in 2004, it's better, because now we've got some sexy ladies in the ring. And I'm like, Cole changed a lot, didn't he? Or perhaps more accurately, the directive of WWE changed. But hey, I'm in kayfabe here. Michael Cole used to be a perv, and now he's not. He's got a cool friend called Pat, who helped him accept his own masculinity and not project his own fragile ego onto the women in the ring. And I really respect that from Pat, you know? Another good sign in the crowd, Fat Boy's in the house. Come on, if you watched the last video, you'll know that Big Billy P was in the house. This time, Fat Boy's in the house. There we go. It's a party. It's the Great American Bash. 2004. This match isn't very good, and I realized while watching it that I didn't think it was very good, because instead of paying attention to the action, I just kept like noticing stuff in the crowd, like this guy, who I think looks like if Greg Valentine was the most 80s babyface ever. Both women collide, they knock heads, they're both down in the ring, and Taz says, oh, Torrie Wilson looks like she's on Dream Street. And Michael Cole says, in his normal Michael Cole delivery as well, says, oh, well, I do have dreams about Torrie. Come on. Sable looks like she's injured as well, but she's playing possum. She grabs a roll-up on Torrie for the win. And it's worth noting here that Torrie's shoulder could, Luke, please put this on screen, her shoulder could not be more off the canvas. I could drive a Great American bus through that gap. Lex Luger's one, the bus the Lex Express, that's the one. I could drive that through the gap between her shoulder and the canvas. Not literally, but it's comedy, isn't it, for this video? Anyway, Sable wins. We head backstage again. Dawn Marie is interviewing Renee Dupree, who is cross about losing in that US title 4-way elimination match. But Renee says he's not going to get upset. He's going to do what the French do best. He's going to protest and secure himself a rematch. Because this is a really horny show, Renee now turns his attention to Dawn Marie and hits on her and asks if she wants to see his French tickler. But he means it literally, because that was the name of his dance. So he does his dance, and the FBI walk past. Not those ones, although they should probably have been on the scene at this show for multiple reasons. The cement, the rampant horniness on display. But no, it's the full-blooded Italians. Nunzio looks at Dawn, and just to make sure I've got this right, yep, he says, do you want to see my 15 inches? He then goes, watch out, let's make some room for this. And I'm honestly worried he's going to like whap his lad out and just flop it on the edge of the thing. But instead he goes, wait, it's his feet. His feet are 15 inches. We all knew he was talking about his feet, right? Well, it makes no sense. Why would he want to show Dawn his feet? So Dawn, is like, whoa, you've got really big feet. I know what that means. And she leaves with Nunzio instead of Renee Dupree. That's the joke here. And I have to say that the most confusing part of this whole segment isn't Nunzio, it isn't Renee, it isn't Dawn Marie. It's Nunzio's pal, Johnny the Bull, who plays the role of like a hype man for his mate's cock. He's really hyping up Nunzio's manhood. He's like, hey, my boy's packing down there. And Nunzio's like, I am, should I show her? And he's like, yeah, show her, yeah. And I'm like, oh man, it's weird. It's just, I can't even think of what to say. It's just weird. Anyway, Renee can join Charlie Haas and that guy in the crowd with the sign from earlier on as three men who've potentially had their girlfriend stolen tonight. And what a weird theme of this show. As you can probably tell, this show's really quite gone downhill in the past few segments, but here comes the savior we all need to save the day. It's a man known as Mordecai. Can we just stop for a second and look at the state of Mordecai here, right? And I feel quite bad for him, because I know that he'd come back as Kevin Thorne, which was a bit of a better gimmick. But here he just kind of looks like a crap Brock Lesnar. The cross on his gear even looks a little bit like Lesnar's tattoo. He's taking on Mr. Pay-Per-View himself, Mr. Excitement, Bob Holly, yay. Michael Cole on commentary shakes off his perviness and gives us some background on this actual match that's going on, saying that Mordecai and Bob Holly had a backstage brawl on SmackDown and we're still trying to work out why, but it's never explained why. So to me, it just seems like laziness, like they couldn't really think of a reason. Remember what I said at the start, by the way, about this show being a little bit spread quite thin, because it's a brand exclusive one, but the SmackDown roster wasn't that deep. This match is possibly the biggest example of that. Bob heads down to the ring, but he's the babyface in this one, unusually for Bob, and he couldn't look less excited about it because he's got to slap hands with some of the fans. He's like, yeah, babyface Bob Holly, here I go. Pretty early on, the action spills to the outside and Mordecai throws Bob into his symbol on the outside, which sounds dangerous, but it kind of just wobbles when he hits it. The crowd are dead for this one, and so am I, to be honest, but eventually Mordecai finishes Bob off with the Razor's Edge, or as Michael Cole calls it, this crucifix-like maneuver, which is a Vince McMahonism if I've ever heard one. Next up, maybe the first actual big match of this show. It's for the WWE title, and it's Eddie Guerrero defending against JBL. So earlier on in 2004, Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar for the title at No Way Out, and everyone was really happy, yay, except for Lesnar, who'd be gone a few months later after losing to Goldberg at WrestleMania 20.
I've had enough of playing games.
As for Eddie, he's now feuding with JBL, who's recently undergone a rapid transformation from no-nonsense brawling ass-kicker in the APA to all-nonsense suit-wearing stockbroker John Bradshaw Layfield. Clearly, WWE were like, right, we really need a top heel for SmackDown, especially now that Lesnar's gone. We need someone to fill his big boots, so let's push JBL to the main event and really ramp up his villainy as well. Because in recent times, JBL's gone from just wearing a suit and being rich and arrogant to, let's have a look, calling Eddie's family illegal immigrants and causing his grandmother to have a heart attack. This feud culminated at first, I guess, in that big match, that famous match at Judgment Day 2004, where JBL blasted Eddie with a steel chair and Eddie bladed hard and like way too much blood was coming out of him. And it's one of the most famous examples, I think, of blood really adding to the drama and peril of a match, or one of the most disturbing examples, depending on which side of the fence you lie. I mean, I thought it was awesome, but I feel guilty thinking how awesome it was. But man, it was awesome. Eddie retained via DQ at Judgment Day. This is the rematch for that, fought under Texas Bullrope rules, which sounds brutal, but it's not that kind of Texas Bullrope match where they just beat each other up while tied together. It's also like a four corners match where they've got to hit all four top turnbuckles around the ring. So it's part brutal and part like playground game for children. JBL's out in the limo, Eddie's out in the lowrider, different cars, they're such different people, aren't they? And also, there's a sign in the crowd that says, I lied, I cheated, I stole my Great American Bash seats. Now, harrowingly, I actually tracked down the victim of this crime who had their seats for the Great American Bash stolen, and I've managed to secure an exclusive interview with them, which I'm going to air for you right now. We have taken steps to protect the identity of the fan involved, which they requested, and we totally respect because we understand what a serious situation this is. So now for a few exclusive words from the fan who had their seats stolen. I hope you pay close attention and really listen to what they have to say. First of all, thank you very much for coming forward and speaking about this incident. I'm sure it must be very, very difficult for you. Could you maybe first describe what you remember about the incident on that day?
I remember it like it was yesterday, driving to the arena, arriving at the gate, going to have my ticket in, but it wasn't there. I looked in all my pockets, but it just wasn't there. That's when I realized somebody must have stolen it.
And how did it then feel to see their homemade sign on screen bragging very much about this crime live on pay-per-view for everybody to see?
Well, it was a slap in the face, obviously. But I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt sorry for them and the fact that they had to ruin somebody else's experience instead of doing the right thing. It's really sad, actually.
It sounds like, despite all this hardship, you've really found it in yourself to maybe even forgive this person, and honestly, that's very commendable.
Absolutely not. I missed the Undertaker versus the Dudley boys, so I intend to prosecute them to the full extent of the law.
Shocking and serious words there from our victim of that crime there. Eddie and JBL brawl a lot to start this match. They head to the announce table and Eddie gets revenge on JBL for their last match. This time he hits him with a steel chair and JBL bleeds, and it's cool. He doesn't bleed as heavily as Eddie does in the last match, but realistically, who does? In fact, Luke, just to ram that point home about Eddie Guerrero and how much he bled in that original match, could you perhaps show maybe a black and white flashback to that with some dramatic effects or some music? Do your editing stuff and just really show people how awesome it was. They tease either man touching all four corners in sequence, but then one's always on hand to stop the other before they touch the fourth one. So Eddie changes tactic, slides beneath JBL's legs and yanks the bull rope up into his ball sack. Just want to point out to everybody watching there, for some reason I capitalized the word sack in my notes here, but not the word ball, which is why I said, so it's not ball sack, it's ball sack. And I genuinely have no idea how I wanted myself to read this line when I shot it in future, so thanks Past Jack, that's great note taking there. Eddie hits the frog splash, but JBL rolls out of the ring to stop him from touching all four corners because he's tied to him. Later on, JBL throws Eddie onto the Spanish announce table, which does not budge an inch, which is unusual for the Spanish announce table, which usually breaks at the merest contact. So JBL just slams him through it to make sure. So instead, Eddie low blows JBL with the cowbell. He touches one corner and then a second one, but as he's going around the ring, right, JBL's kind of creeping behind him like Bugs Bunny and like touching each one as well, and kind of telegraphs the finish because we can really see where this is going. They fight over the fourth and final turnbuckle and JBL positions himself in the way, so Eddie jumps over him and touches it, and he's won. He's retained the WWE title. Uh-oh, it's time for a dusty finish. Yes, here comes Kurt Angle, backed up by Luther Reigns, and Kurt Angle goes, look, Eddie, mate, I've no personal bias against you. I just wanted to show you a replay to make sure we got the decision correct. And sure enough, as Eddie jumps over JBL, the replay shows that JBL's back hits the turnbuckle first, and he's won the match. And what a strong way to become WWE champion for the first time. And what a way as well to take the title off such a popular babyface champion as well. I understand if they wanted to take the belt off him. I think reports from the time suggest that Eddie was really burned out as well and didn't like being the top champion, so fair enough. But man, think of a better way to do this. The crowd are obviously so deflated. There's like Eddie chants, but yeah, this was not a popular booking decision. JBL would go on to hold this title for what felt like 5 years, but was actually only 9 months. I've checked it on the Google. He would then go on to lose it, of course, to John Cena at WrestleMania 21, kickstarting John Cena's rise up the card forever and ever until he became Peacemaker, like I said before. Do you really want to taste it? There's a dance as well, which Fraser was trying to teach me, but it's quite complicated and I don't know all of it. It's good though. JBL's reign was very much characterized by him weaseling his way out of title shots as well. Like he'd win matches by DQ, or he'd win because of interference from the likes of Orlando Jordan or Heidenreich. This is so mid-2000s. My favorite example is when he faced the Big Show in a barbed wire steel cage match and won because he got his ass beat too much by the Big Show. Like Big Show chokeslammed him through the ring, so JBL crawled, like dragged his body out under the ring and through the door to escape. So that was the sort of, it was a heel reign, so I understand. And finally, here we go. The finish that traumatized so many of us as children. It's Undertaker versus those damn Dudleys in a handicap match. Sorry, a handicap concrete crypt match with Paul Bearer in the concrete crypt, Paul Heyman overseeing proceedings. Let's really break this down. Even without that stipulation, right, this is still a weird main event, isn't it? I know the Dudleys are one of the most iconic tag teams in WWE history. I know Taker's one of the most iconic single stars in WWE history, but having them against each other 2-on-1 feels like a weird main event for a pay-per-view. So I don't really know how this came about, but we're going to need to break it down, so let's find out why. Strap yourselves in, because we're heading down to Storytown, daddies. Why have I called the audience daddies? On a previous SmackDown, Paul Heyman told his old ECW buddies, the Dudley Boys, to do something that would cause a stir and elevate their status in WWE, do something that would cause an impact. So they kidnapped Heyman. Except, whoops, no they didn't. It was later revealed that they didn't kidnap Paul Heyman at all. We just saw them kidnapping someone and they shouted at him and he was called Paul, but it was later revealed to be Paul Bearer. We then get the standard sort of wrestling kidnapping angle. It's weird that kidnapping is such a common trope in wrestling, but we get the standard kidnapping sort of stuff with Taker being like, oh my God, give him back, I love him so much. And Heyman is like, no, not unless you align with us and do our bidding, and then we'll become all powerful. In the build to this show, as I alluded to earlier, Heyman repeatedly urges Taker to do the right thing, i.e., I think, throw the match or help the Dudleys and fight his urge to actually just snap and batter the Dudleys because he's Undertaker and he can win almost any match he wants at any time. And as I've mentioned, the stipulation is the Paul Bearer is trapped in a glass crypt which is attached to a cement mixer, and if Undertaker doesn't do the right thing, which we assume is let the Dudleys win, but I don't think it's ever explicitly said, then Heyman will bury Bearer in the cement. That is horrifying. None of these modern horror stipulations like, oh, I've got to get your eye before you get mine. Oh, I've got your eye, but it's obviously fake, but now I'm going to pretend to be sick. Or none of this, oh, come and fight me in my swamp. There's alligators and snakes, and I'm going to boil you in the lake. No. Right. The horror show at Extreme Rules, right? I need to say, that could be a future video in this series. What a weird event. And it didn't even take place in Halloween. It took place in the summertime. On to the match in question. Great American Bash 2004. We're back in the room. Paul Bearer in the crypt. Paul Heyman overseeing proceedings. Dudley Boys, Undertaker. Look, by the way, look at sexy Paul Heyman there, looking all svelte in his suit. He looks lovely at this event. Well done, Heyman. I would. Before this match gets underway, Heyman cuts a promo and says, Undertaker, I hope you've decided to do the right thing. And just in case you won't do the right thing, here's a demonstration of what'll happen. And he pulls the lever and a little bit of cement goes in. And sort of scares Bearer. And Undertaker's like, oh no. Just like to address my pronunciation of lever there. We in England say lever, but I'm trying to make this a universal. I think lever is the more common one in a global set. Lever. He pulls the lever, man. Bubba in the ring tells Undertaker to lay down. Imagine if Taker just went, yeah, fair enough, like there's a man's life on the line. It's one loss and there's no titles at stake here. Just pin me, Bubba. That's what I think most of us would do, even if we were 7 foot and a zombie. I mean, by this point in his career, Undertaker had beaten Hogan, Michaels, Austin, and he's beaten so many all-time greats, and he's won the title multiple times. What's one loss to the Dudley Boys on his record? It's too much for Undertaker, apparently, and he's willing to risk a man's life that he cares about just for that sweet winner's purse. Actually, no, wait. For a while, Undertaker does lie down, and Bubba stands over him. Great piece of heel work, by the way, because Bubba goes, I've been waiting for this my whole life, and he's about to pin him, and Taker grabs the throat, grabs Devon's throat, and the match is on, and Undertaker's just dominating. He goes for old school, but Heyman gets on the mic and goes, bad dog, bad dog, bad dog, to get him to put the Dudley Boys down. But Heyman's obviously from New York, so it's got like 5 extra vowels. He's like, bad dog. Really insulting from me there. Heyman sends a little bit more cement into the crypt, and to be fair, I need to mention at this stage, right, Paul Bearer really makes the most of this ridiculous stipulation, because Paul Bearer's a pro man, like he always made the most of whatever ridiculous circumstances his character found itself in, so full credit to Paul Bearer. He hams it up, he's like, oh, only the Undertaker can save me. Like, he's doing a really good job given the situation. Undertaker looks conflicted for a bit. He's like, oh, this isn't ideal, but again, Bearer's life to him doesn't mean more than winning against the Dudley Boys in the main event of a SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. So he keeps fighting, and eventually it's Bubba Ray Dudley who's the first one who sees sense and actually heads up the ramp and says to Heyman, like, actually stop it, what are you doing? Bubba stops the machine for now. In the ring, Taker goes for a tombstone, but Devon slips out the back and hits a low blow. I can't believe he would cheat in this noble concrete crypt stipulation match. The Dudleys take control of the match for a while, but Undertaker's trainer feeds him a berry and he does the sit-up and he looks right at Heyman. Little joke there for the Pokemon fans. Taker doesn't actually have someone on hand to feed him berries. Can you imagine if he did though? Ooh, yum yum yum, Taker, wake up. A few berries for you there. Berries and cream, berries and cream. Taker fires up, choke slam to Bubba Ray, tombstone to Devon, who can't resist doing his wobbly sell, but just with one leg this time because he's trapped under Taker's body. As Taker pins him to win the match, Undertaker did you not listen to the stipulation? Literally, what have you done? Heyman goes to finish off Bearer, pulling the lever, but instead Undertaker uses lightning powers and makes a lightning bolt hit the contraption. What is this? Dragon Ball Z? Heyman takes a bump, obviously, which is fantastic pro wrestling. Taking a bump because some lightning scared you. That's as on Anderson as it gets. This is pure wrestling at its finest. Taker goes up to the crypt and looks at Bearer, and Bearer's like, oh yes, only you can save me. And I'm like, only Undertaker can get you out that glass box. We've got a ring crew, I'm pretty certain. Undertaker gets on the mic and word for word says, Paul, I have no other choice. Yes, you literally do. What are you on about? He then says, rest in peace, pulls the thing, murders a man, and just walks off. How is this possibly allowed? Right, let's examine 2 possible reasons I can think of why Undertaker could possibly have done this, right? Reason number 1, he was honoring the stipulation. First of all, why would you do that? The stipulation wasn't even really made clear. Heyman was always saying do the right thing, but I don't think it was ever written in stone anywhere that that is what the conditions of the match were. Also, the ring announcer didn't exactly get in and go, like at the start of the Royal Rumble, like run down all the rules or anything. So I think it was just Heyman's word against Taker's will. And Taker proved to Heyman that he could do what he wanted. So why? I'm confused. Reason number 2, and this is possibly the reason that WWE want us to think. Maybe Taker knew that he'd be in Heyman's back pocket forever if he didn't off Bearer himself, because otherwise they could always hold Bearer's fate over him. Except that's not true either, because Undertaker with the lightning has just reminded us that he's an undead zombie thunder god and he can do what he wants, and Heyman's so scared of him and the Dudleys can't take him out 2-on-1, so where's the danger anymore? This should have had a happy ending, guys. Am I being childish here? But no, Taker must do this because he has no choice and I must bury you. Grow up, man, Undertaker, man. You'd won. On the next SmackDown, by the way, we learned that Bearer's actually alive, but he's in a serious condition. What? Is Paul Bearer a friggin' superhero? How did he survive that? Is he David Blaine, for example? Shazam. Feel the magic indeed, Paul Bearer. I don't understand. The next time we'd see Bearer on screen would be in 2010, when he returned initially on Taker's side, but then betrayed him to side with Kane. And honestly, after the events of this pay-per-view, I don't blame him one bit. I would do the same. Let's wrap this up with, fittingly, the final shot of the night, the final shot of the pay-per-view, which is this. Just a full glass crypt there full of cement. What a show, everyone. Go to bed happy, kids. Don't try and think too much about what you've just seen. I did. I was scared of this pay-per-view as a child. And you might be asking me, Jack, has break it down, has that helped you overcome these fears in adult life? Let me give you a comparison, right? This pay-per-view, right, was one of 2 things that really scared me as a child, like nightmares scary. One was the Great American Bash 2004. The other was an advert that aired over here in the UK for the Danish beer Carlsberg. And the advert campaign they were running was that the Danes, it's such a good beer that Denmark, the Danes don't want it to leave and they want to keep it in the country, right? And oh man, if you've seen this advert, you'll know the one I'm talking about. So I don't know if Luke can use any of these images, but if you can, I'm not going to be able to watch this video back because it's still... Oh, it's so scary. So there's various skits in these adverts, right, or these commercials, where like there's a truck of Carlsberg being driven out of Denmark, but the border guards arrest the guy because they don't want the beer to leave Denmark, right? The one that scared me the most is where this Carlsberg truck driver, oh, I'm getting shivers thinking about it, breaks down outside this remote old house in like this rural, in the middle of nowhere, and he goes inside and there's a little old woman, right, and he's like, oh, my truck's broken down, can I use your telephone please? And she's like, yes, come in. And he goes inside and you see him on the phone giving directions to where his truck's broken down, and then he hangs up and he goes to her, may I use your bathroom? And she goes, yeah, it's through there. And he goes through and there's a trap door and she makes him, he falls through the floor, right, into this like basement or this hole of nothing. And then the last bit is she looks over the edge and goes, goodbye. And then she like rolls the rug back over the trap door and he's trapped there forever. Like because she stopped the beer from leaving Denmark, but my heart's actually racing talking about that advert. If anybody, leave comments below if you've also seen it and if it scared you too.
Farewell.
So the point of all that scared me the most as a child, but this was second. Undertaker doing this and the cement and everything, that was second, but... So honestly, now that I've talked about that Carlsberg advert, the Great American Bash doesn't seem too bad, actually. I should have just manned up as a child. Nothing came close to that Carlsberg one. So that's it. Thank you for watching my breakdown of the Great American Bash 2004 and that one Carlsberg advert that has stuck with me for a long time. Maybe doing this has been therapeutic in a way and I've gotten over the finish of the Great American Bash 2004. Not the Carlsberg advert, that will stay with me for the rest of my days. But thank you once again for watching. Leave ideas in the comments below, please, about what you'd like me to cover in future, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. A big thank you to Luke as well for editing it, as always, and I'll see you very soon. God, Carlsberg advert.